Good evening. Welcome to the March 18th, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting is being held via video conferencing in accordance with Governor Cuomo's Order 202.1. And until further notice, all of the board's meetings will be held remotely. Welcome to the March 18th. I don't know what that is. Okay. So we ask the public to continually check the town's website for updates and for new information. There are also options on the website for public comments and to pre-register to speak on public hearings, so please consider that for all future meetings. If you wish to view tonight's live meeting only, please do not join the Zoom meeting. Please go to the town's meeting portal, choose the meeting group from the drop-down on the left, and click on the live link at the top of the page. If you wish to be heard during a meeting but did not pre-register, please go to the town's meeting portal, choose the meeting group from the drop-down on the left, and you will find the information required to join the Zoom meeting. With that, I'd ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will be starting this meeting with the public hearings. We have applicants and members of the public standing by via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. Charles Certain will mute the speakers until it is their time to give testimony before the board. Please be patient. If you find that you are having difficulties accessing the hearings, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions. Also, there are a few public hearings that will not be heard tonight, meaning that they'll be adjourned. So please listen to hear when they will be rescheduled for. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking, other than attorneys, will be sworn in, will state their address for the record, and will offer their testimony as it relates to the application before the board. Board members who must recuse themselves from any application will state so on the record and will be removed from the meeting until the end of the hearing. Unless otherwise stated at the end of each hearing, all of these applications will remain open for written comments for all purposes until April 19th, 2021. Those comments can be addressed to the board secretary, Candace, and sent via email, mail, and/or dropped off at town hall. Additionally, in accordance with the governor's order, these hearings will be recorded and will be posted to the town's website. And with that, I wanted to ask if we have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burtis.
Aye.
And I just want to mention I'm voting aye on the minutes as well. I did watch, I missed last meeting, but I did watch the entire meeting, and Ms. Nestessa did an excellent job chairing. And so I'm going to be participating in all the decisions and all public hearings that were at the last meeting, and I vote aye.
Okay. Before we continue on to the agenda, for just a minute, I'd like to have a moment of silence in honor of Christopher Seeger. He was the beloved life partner of Adam Grossman, and he passed away unexpectedly from complications related to COVID recently. So if you would please join me just for a few moments of silence to celebrate his life. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to continue on to the agenda now.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the support of all the members of the board, and Katie and Candace and so many others during what is a very difficult time for me. So with that, we will go on next to adjournments.
Okay, there is some changes to the agenda, so you folks know. Item 1 in the agenda is Sandland Corp. I'm going to move to re-advertise that for 9/2.
Okay, so there's no vote on that.
All right.
But Katie, you wanted us to make that a final?
I did. I wanted to recommend to the board. I mean, I know there's no vote, but this should be the final adjournment. I've actually spoken to the attorney for the applicant. It's on this meeting's agenda because the town had failed to re-advertise it. So this is really, this latest re-advertisement is our fault. But after this, I've explained to the attorney for the applicant that they need to open this hearing and start the testimony, or we'll remove it.
Okay.
Okay,
We're in agreement.
I am
I'm in
five on
agreement
the,
with that too.
item 5 on the agenda is Edward Burke Jr., Patricia Burke. Move to adjourn that to, we're gonna adjourn that to our 4:15 meeting.
Second. Mr. Tudhill,
I,
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
and item 10 on the agenda, which is Stewart posting. I'm gonna move to adjourn that to our 4:1 meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill,
Aye,
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
okay, on the decision calendar, John Lucas Jr. I'll move that we reopen that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill,
Aye,
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Chair votes aye, reopen.
Okay,
Yeah, now-
let me just quick say, the reason that this is being reopened is we received some written submissions from the applicant that they wanted the board to consider granting relief from the corner clearance. He had submitted some photographs, and it seemed that the board wanted to take a little testimony on that before that was considered. So I was asking if you'd consider to reopen it and put it on the April 1st agenda.
so moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill,
Aye,
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Chair votes aye, on for April 1st.
okay, the following decisions will be adjourned to our next meeting, which is April 1st. That'll be Wilbur Hanson, Frank Freddy, Richard Varela, Jerry Wallia, Eric Marshall-Gladys, and let's see what else we got. Michael Scarola and Jacqueline Kress.
Second.
Okay, and this is for all of them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so then the following decision will be put off, held over to our April 15th meeting, which is 85 East Way LLC.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll get on to the agenda.
All right. Item 2 on the agenda is 90 WGL LLC, 90 Wild Goose Lane in Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-103-2-24. Do we already have jurisdiction, Katie, on this?
Nope, we had to re-advertise it. We advertised it as a minor, and then we realized that we needed to have a hearing.
Okay, applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code for a proposed covered patio with roof deck, 330-11 residential districts table of dimensional regulations for a principal rear yard setback of 62.9 feet, where 100 feet is required, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. We're looking for Gail Flanagan.
I see Gail. Hi, Gail. We can see you. We can hear you. Oh, we just lost you.
Okay, can you see and hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's been a while since I've appeared before you. In fact, I don't think I've done a Zoom with you at all, but It's glad to be back, and I hope everybody stays well. I just see that you've confirmed that you have jurisdiction, so I'll move forward from that. As has been announced, this is an application for a single variance, which is a rear yard variance to 62.9 feet to permit construction of a one-story roof porch addition to the rear of the existing house. You may remember from the submission that I originally made that we originally had applied for a minor variance, hoping that we could use the A zone requirements, which were in effect when the subdivision map of which this is a part was filed. And it was determined at that time that while the board granted variances that basically allowed us to use the A setbacks, they were variances, not an interpretation that that zoning was applicable. And as a result, we needed to re-advertise the application. You know, the original application thought that we could seek a minor variance because the setback from the rear yard in those days was 70 feet instead of the 100 feet that is now applicable. So I apologize for any confusion that may have caused the board and any time that that may have wasted on it. But it's interesting to note that the variance that was granted to enable construction of the house and other structures did basically conform with the A zone setbacks. And in fact, that earlier decision also said that for computing the required rear yard lot coverage maximum, the 70-foot rear yard for which was applicable in the A zone would be, we could still use that. So I think that that's important when you consider the application, even though it's not a minor variance. When you look at the fact that the subdivision was designed under a form of zoning, that I think that has some relevance. As I mentioned, this is a one-story covered porch only with a flat roof on top of it. It would be only 7.1 feet closer to the rear line than the original A zoning would have allowed. I did submit earlier this week some photographs, which I hope are in the record, which show that the rear property line is extensively screened by very tall evergreens. And in fact, the entire property is screened. I also submitted along with that a Google Earth photo, which gives you a sense of the screening and also the relationship of this project to the neighbor to the east, who would be the neighbor most directly affected by the application. And it's important to note, if you look at that aerial photograph, that neighbor's house is located much further to the east because it fronts on a different street. I think it's a New Light Lane. And so that the rear yard of that property is facing the rear yard of the applicant's property, which I think has some relevance. The application as proposed does conform with the 20% rear yard lot coverage requirement. It's just a shade under. So we would not need any relief from that. Now, as far as the standards for granting a variance are concerned, obviously this is the balancing test that one typically looks at in cases of this type. We would argue that the variance is not substantial, especially given the nature of the subdivision and the fact that it was designed under the A zone requirements, which the existing construction meets. In that case, it would have been only a 10% variance. Now, granted, it's a 37% variance. But again, if we consider the development of the area and the existing construction and the landscaping, I would submit that it's not substantial when you consider all of those factors. I would submit that there's no negative environmental impact. This is a covered porch addition, no bathrooms, no bedrooms, no additional parking, no environmental effects. In fact, it would be with a patio underneath it. So we're not increasing habitable space. I would submit that there's no negative effect on the neighborhood for some of the reasons I've already pointed out. The heavy screening, the lack of any increased demand on services, the separation of this property and the improvements on it from the adjoining property. I can also tell you that I did have communications from the neighbors both to the north and the south of this property, and neither one of them had any objection. In fact, the fellow to the south was more than happy to go along with it. So as I've been checking, I haven't been aware that there's been any written comment on this. I know there was no written comment even when we had the initial application, which was filed for the minor variance. There was no comment on that. As far as feasible alternatives are concerned, given the development of this lot and given the fact that it's longer and narrower than it is deep, And given where the construction is situated, we think this is the most feasible location. This proposed porch lines up with the breakfast area as shown on the floor plans. If you look at those, the second floor, the deck that's on top of the proposed addition would access off a bedroom, which works with the design where that doesn't apply anywhere else on the second floor. I would submit that the situation is not self-imposed, given the existing zoning, the existing subdivision design and so forth. And as you know, even if it were, that would not necessarily be a determining factor. I think when you do the balancing test on this, it would be difficult to find a negative or adverse effect on the neighborhood. And I would consider that, given it's a porch addition only, it's a relatively minor and inoffensive thing. I was hoping, and I'm not sure whether or not the architect, Jim Thies, had signed in, but if he has, he would be able to answer any technical questions, which perhaps I couldn't. So I hope I made that short and didn't bore you too much.
Okay, thank you, Gil.
Sure.
Well, in my view, what we're talking about is a setback that is pretty significant. What's being proposed versus what the zoning requires, 62.9 feet from 100 feet. Looking at the aerial, it does not appear that the impacted neighbors have their residences close to the property line. And so we'll see if there is any one who's here to give us testimony as to about the application in terms of the neighbors. But I see this as a reasonable application. But anyway, any questions from members of the board for Gil or Katie? Do you have questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Gil. This is just for housekeeping purposes.
Yeah.
When you and I had spoken earlier, we had talked about him the surveyor taking the note off the map, the survey, which he did on this thing, but it doesn't look like he's given us an up. I don't know. I'm looking at the updated date on my survey, and it says November 4th, 2020.
I'll tell you why that is, because originally when he prepared it, he based it, the survey when it was first done, he based it on the current zoning. So what we did in order to come back to you, we were able to use the previous iteration. So he didn't actually have to redate it, but if you want, I can have him redate it.
I actually would like to have it redated, because then there's,
Sure.
the other one that you gave us is dated December 9th, 2020. And, that's all.
I'll be happy to do that, but that's the reason for it.
Okay.
Also want to mention that Anthony Trez is here tonight from the planning department. And Anthony, thank you for joining us, and feel free to give us your comments at any point on any of the public hearings. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard this evening on Zoom in connection with the application of 90 WGL LLC? This is for property located at 90 Wild Goose Lane in Watermill. If you were waiting to be heard, please let us know by raising your hand.
I see no hands.
No hands. Okay. All right. If not, Jason, it's yours.
What are our dates? 4/12, 4/15? Does that make sense? Or no?
The date, the submission date is April 19th.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I believe the decision date would be the first meeting in May.
Next.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Katie, what is do you know if the date of the first meeting in May?
May 6th.
May 6th. Okay.
All right, I will make a motion to close the public hearing except for written submissions. Written submissions will be due by April 19th, and we will have a decision for you by May 6th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill,
Aye.
Mr. Daly. Can't hear you, Mike.
You're muted.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Chair votes aye. Have a good night, Gil. Thank you.
Thanks, you too. Thank you.
Okay, item 3 on the agenda is Julie Medler, 80 Bay Street, North Sea, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-57-1-35. Do we have jurisdiction, Katie?
Oh, you gotta read it. It's re-advertised.
Okay. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code. One, for the proposed screen room on a non-conforming lot. 330-11 residential district stable dimensional regulations for a total lot coverage of 23.7%, where a maximum of 20% is permitted. And two, for the location of an existing swimming pool, 330-77D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in residence districts where a rear yard coverage of 35.2%, where a maximum of 20% is permitted, and any other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction.
Good evening. Heather, I think you're muted. There we go. There we go.
Good evening, members of the board. Heather Wright for the applicant Julie Medor, 30 Main Street, Southampton, New York. Julie's also on the call with us today. The subject property is 80 Bay Street in Southampton. Ms. Medler purchased the property in 2019. As you know, the property is located in the R10 zoning district, and it's part of a 1928 map of George Howell subdivision. The R10 zoning district requires a lot area of 10,000 square feet, and our lot is non-conforming as to lot area is 8,662 square feet. I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay, so I can get the survey up. Okay. So we applied for an updated certificate of occupancy in December of 2019 before the property was purchased, and it was issued for a one-story, one-family dwelling, attached one-car garage, finished basement, a hot tub, pool deck, and 6-foot stockade fence. The applicant has filed for building permits for certain renovations at the home. As part of those renovations, the applicant is proposing to enclose the footprint of the existing deck and essentially turning it into a 210 square foot screened porch. And you can see that where it says proposed screened room on the survey. As you know, 330-5 of the code defines lot coverage as the portion of the lot area covered by the area of building or buildings. So, the existing lot coverage right now is 21%, but by essentially covering the existing deck and creating an enclosed porch, we're here tonight for a variance for lot coverage for 23.7%. So if we turn to the balancing test, it's our position that the proposed request will not have an undesirable change to the neighborhood. We're not changing the footprint here of any existing structures. So you can see that the setback of the existing deck is 15.7 feet from the easterly lot line, and it will remain that way, and it will not be any closer to any of the neighbors. And you can see from these photographs that this is a modest, beach cottage. And so, part of the reason that we're looking to enclose the porch really is because for two reasons. We want to maximize the amount of space we have and have a more year-round ability to use the house. And then also, it gets very buggy. If you look at this aerial photograph of the surrounding area, you can see there's almost 68 acres to the south east that is heavily wooded and it can get buggy. So that is the reason for the request to enclose the porch. And also, I think it's worth noting that this is an undersized lot. It's many of the lots in this area are smaller than what's required by zoning, and many of the homes in the area have been granted variances, whether for setback relief or for lot coverage. And I was able to come up with at least 12 in the surrounding area that have had some sort of relief as a result of the fact that the lots are quite small. So, and in fact, the neighbor directly to the east received a lot coverage variance, as well as front and rear yard setback relief. We did hear from 4 of the neighbors, and in fact, it's a very nice community because 3 of them reached out to me directly to support the application, and I submitted their letters to the board in advance. And then the owner of 87 Bay Avenue, I spoke to myself on the phone, and he had no objection to the application. So when you look at the other factors, we don't believe there's any feasible alternative here, because anytime, if we're going to enclose the porch, it's going to increase the lot coverage. And, you know, we're going from 21 to 23.7 on a very constrained lot. So the only way for us to get a roof structure here is to ask for this variance. But we don't believe it's substantial because we're enclosing the footprint of the existing deck. And it's not going to have a negative environmental impact. I mean, we're not adding bathrooms or bedrooms. And in fact, as part of this renovation, we're putting in a new septic system, which has a positive impact, obviously, on the environment. So, you know, we believe that the request for the lot coverage variance is reasonable, and, you know, will have no harm on the community. Now, we were also told when we got the notes from the building department that we needed to include in our application a variance for the existing pool for rear yard coverage relief. In the notes that we received, it said that it looked like the pool configuration altered sometime since it was built. I don't believe that to be the case. The pool was built in 2000, it was CO'd in 2015. The application that was used to build the pool applied for an L-shaped vinyl pool. However, the survey showed a proposed pool of 16 by 32. But ultimately what was constructed was an L-shaped pool. And this is an aerial photograph from 2014. And a CO was issued in 2015 for a pool in this configuration. The configuration has not changed. And we obtained an updated CO in 2019 for this, which included this pool in this configuration. So, you know, the existing rear yard lot coverage was 35.2% when this pool was built in 2015, and it's still 35.2%. Our proposed enclosed porch is not increasing the rear yard lot coverage. So it was my understanding that we needed to include this request in our application as a matter of cleaning up, you know, and making sure everything on the property was in order. So if I'm happy to take any questions from the board at this point, or I'm sure my client would be happy to answer any questions. And I believe our architects may be on the call, John Rose and Scott Harris. And so if you have any technical questions, you can certainly ask them as well.
Heather,
Yes,
do you have the comments from Marjorie in front of you?
I do.
And did you read number 1?
About the elevations and the height.
Yep, and we submitted pyramid drawings to the board and to Marjorie and to Candace, and those drawings show that there is no pyramid encroachment caused by the proposed screen porch.
Awesome.
Okay. So we're dealing with, in terms of the pool, a pool that your client built with permits and got a certificate of compliance for.
Yeah. No, actually, we did not build the pool. We purchased the home,
Okay.
but we did get an updated CO.
I see. Okay, so the prior owner then had done that.
2 owners ago, actually.
Okay. Oh, and Julie, I just have to swear you in. So if you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Julie Medler, 80 Bay Street, Southampton, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks. So, yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the pool because, well, it was there when you bought the property, and I appreciate that, and you're trying to legalize. However, if this were a circumstance where it was a proposed pool, and we were dealing with a proposed rear yard lot coverage of 35.2%, we would be having a conversation about reducing the size of the pool or moving the location of the pool to see how we could minimize that number. We generally like to see the number for rear yard lot coverage to be overall 25% or less, whether it's for pool or for a tennis court. And usually we don't get rear yard lot coverage applications for pools. They're usually almost exclusively for tennis courts most of the time. However, that's a high number. But because it's an as-built, we have to consider that as a factor. And an as-built with permits. I mean, you did it with approvals, or I should say the prior owner did it with approvals. So I think that's a consideration.
COs and, COs and updated COs.
Right. Yeah. So I think all of these things are considerations. Now, one thing I want to mention that would be helpful with the application, and I'm not sure if it's already there because I haven't looked at the application in a bit, is whether we have an estimate to either remove or move the pool to a conforming location. And I'm not saying asking about that because I'm looking to have you do that. Asking for that because I think it may be helpful to see the financial harm that would be caused if the pool were, if the relief for the pool were to be denied.
Mr. Chairman, I think when you look at the survey, I think you'd see that there is no place that you could move this pool so that you wouldn't need relief from rear yard coverage.
Okay.
And I'd like to say, Heather, I came several times to look at the property, and I would not find any other place to put the pool. It's a very, very small lot, and there's a lot of things going on there, but it looks like you've done the best you can considering the size of the lot.
Yeah, and I would just
I
say,
have no problem with this particular case.
it is a summer cottage. It was built as a summer cottage, and I'm trying to upgrade it to all the current
You're doing a
standards,
very, very good job, Julie. Very good job.
but to keep it small and cottage.
Yes, I was very, very impressed by it.
So I would suggest that we have in the file an estimate to remove the pool.
I don't think that's necessary.
Well, I think it would be a good idea considering that we're granting relief for rear yard lot coverage of 35%.
I know, but it's such a small lot. I mean,
Helen, you know, we don't
Okay,
grant relief for 35%.
I know that.
So I would like to have as much information as possible about this circumstance. It's just an estimate. That's all. Again, not bringing it up because I'm looking to have the pool be removed. Okay? But the financial impact on the applicant of the removal of the pool, I think, is relevant here. Okay.
So I just say that I would never, part of when I bought the house and the prior owners had a C of O, and then I got an updated C of O, and I would never have bought the house without making sure that everything was legal and up to standards.
No, and I appreciate the fact that that's what you're doing. You're trying to legalize.
No, but I also want to point out, and I'm sure we can accommodate and get an estimate from the contractor for the file, and I understand the reasons why you're asking for that. However, I do want to make it clear that the application for the pool in 2015 actually said L-shaped pool in the application, which was what was built and has been there since 2015. So while the survey has a pool that was drawn in, and I know back then maybe it wasn't, you could draw in a pool on a survey and submit it for a building permit. Obviously the design changed during construction at some point, but it was approved with a C of O.
No, and all these factors are very important, and you know where I'm going with this. I'm trying to make sure we don't have proposed pools that are looking for 35% rear yard lot coverage, because these facts are unique to this application and this property. So
Each case has its own merits. Let's move on. Heather, get Adam what he wants. Let's move on.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Medler? This is for property located at 80 Bay Street in Southampton / North Sea. If you'd like to be heard, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
I see no hands.
Okay. All right, then Helen, it's yours.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and keep it open for written submissions till April 19th with a decision on May 6th.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I have the next application, so I don't know if I should go out and come back.
I think you
You can
probably,
just stay.
You can stay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, item 4 on the agenda is David and Robin Santora, 26 Homestead Avenue in Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-359-4-39.2. This is already been reopened.
No, you have to read it because we made them Heather, you re-advertised, right?
Yes, we did.
Yep, so
All right.
please read, Keith.
All right. Applicant requests relief for the following relief from Town Code 330-11, residential districts table of dimensional regulations for proposed 2-lot subdivision. 1, a proposed lot width of 111.8 feet, where 120 feet is required for lot 1. And 2, a principal minimum side yard setback of 14.9 feet, where 20 feet is required, and a principal rear yard setback of 52.3 feet, where 60 feet is required for the existing dwelling on lot 1. In addition, applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-84D, pyramid height for an encroachment in the amount of 119.6 cubic feet for an existing dwelling as a result of the proposed subdivision and any other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction.
evening.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. Heather Wright for the applicant, David and Robin Santora, 30 Main Street, Southampton, New York. So we were here a couple months ago on this application to discuss the relief from sections 330-11, which was lot width relief from 120 feet to 111.8 at the road, 14.9 when feet where 20 feet is required for the proposed driveway and utility easement, and a rear yard setback of 52.3 feet. I'm happy to go through those again with you if you want. I know we discussed those variance requests at the last public hearing in detail, and I think the board reopened this matter because one of the questions from the building inspector was whether or not the creation of the 2 lots would create a pyramid encroachment with the existing dwelling that would be on what we will consider as lot 1. So we had the pyramid drawings done, and it turned out that there is a small encroachment from the existing dwelling to what would now be the proposed common driveway easement of 119 cubic feet. I think it's a relatively small encroachment, and it's the result of the fact that we have to install a common driveway easement. It's not going to have any impact on the neighborhood at all. And I can just show you an aerial so you have a better idea. You can see that the encroachment will be significantly far enough away from the adjacent lot. In fact, the lot doesn't even, it won't even be visible. The house isn't really even visible from the neighbor's lot. So it's our position that the encroachment is really minor and minimal and will not have a negative impact on the community. I had requested that the board look at this as part of any other relief necessary in my original application, but I believe you wanted to have some testimony on this matter. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Pretty small amount of pyramid relief. So I'm not too concerned about it, but the relief itself, I just wanted to, and I think members of the board wanted to just have this on the record so that pretty much the neighbors were aware that it was part of the relief that was being requested by the applicant.
Of course.
Yeah. My only other question is I just want to make sure I have a pyramid sketch.
You should.
Okay. I see it. It's on the survey. Okay, I got it.
And Adam, if I may, do I have to give swear or anything, or am I just staff comments?
Your staff comments, but I'll swear you in if you want me to.
That's okay. Just the applicant's already aware of this. The planning board's reviewed a subdivision application. We adopted a pre-app report. As Heather said, there's going to be a common driveway serving both lots. And the only other issue the planning raised was the new vacant lot will be subject to the new IA system, and any substantial construction on the existing house would be subject to the new IA system. So those are the only planning issues. We'll just put them on the record.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of the board or Katie? Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard on Zoom this evening in connection with the application of Santora? This is for property located at 26 Homestead Avenue in Quayog. If you would like to be heard, please let us know by raising your hand.
There are no hands.
Okay, so I would move that we close the public hearing this evening except for written submissions, which the deadline for written submissions will be April 19th. And I will have a decision ready at our May 6th meeting.
Second,
Mr. Tuthill,
aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a
Heather.
good evening. Yep, bye-bye.
All right.
Item 6 on the agenda is Round Dune Inc. 101 Round Dune. Suffolk County Tax Map 900-385-2-14 in East Quogue.
Okay, we're looking for Aram and Karen Hogue.
Do we have anyone here on behalf of Round Dune Inc.?
Yep, Charles is probably looking for Karen and Aram Tertullian.
They're in.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Aram Tertullian.
All right. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Aaron. All right. So maybe you can give us an update. Tell us where we are. Can you both hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm having a little difficulty with the audio, but I did want to bring to the board's attention that today we had filed a submission to the zoning board clerk. I don't know if everybody has gotten an opportunity to take a look at that yet.
You just submitted it today?
Yes, it was submitted to Candace this morning.
Nope. I mean, you may have submitted it, but the board, I haven't seen it. I don't know if the board has.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's not reasonable to submit something on the morning of a meeting and expect that we would see it.
Well, maybe you can, Karen, you can tell us the substance of what it is.
Sure. So Aaron, would you like to speak to the substance?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Like to swear me in, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me to do that. If you can state your name and address for the record.
Aram Tertullian, First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I didn't swear you in because I have in my notes that you were previously.
Oh, that's true.
sworn in.
Thank you.
So you're sworn in twice.
Thanks for the opportunity to review the materials that we submitted. You have in possession letters from the Coastal Erosion Hazard Administrator and from the Conservation Board with regard to this project. In my review of those letters, I discerned that each one of them had recommended 3 conditions to the board should the board decide that this project was worthy of your approval. And those conditions were laid out in those letters. I've summarized them in my report. And the Coastal Erosion Hazard Administrator recommended that the geocube should be the minimum necessary to remain at the site. And I submit to the board that the structure as it's currently submitted, as it was designed, as it was approved, and as it exists right now is in fact the minimum necessary, and removal of any aspect of that structure would compromise the efficacy of the structure to provide the protection necessary. And therefore we have the minimum necessary to proceed. The erosion administrator also recommended to condition any approvals to extend the time frame with an agreement by the applicant to remove them in their entirety at such time as the fire island at Montauk Point renourishment occurs. You may recall we brought this up in our initial submittal, and we're looking for a time variance because of the exposed condition and the progress forward of the fire island to Montauk Point project. So in general, we agree with this condition with the proviso that when the project is completed and the performance is evaluated, that we come back to this board and review that situation. I would just point out for the record that the Army Corps of Engineers has just released a new timetable for the Tiana section of the Fire Island to Montauk Point project, and that work is now scheduled to begin in 2023, in September of 2023. And you'll see that noted in the materials that I submitted to you. I just want to bring it to your attention because we had asked for an earlier date of 2022 in our prior submittal, because that was the schedule that the Army Corps had given us at that time. They just revised this in a briefing to the town board about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The third item that the erosion administrator requested was that should there be erosion of the dune and dynamic beach conditions create significant exposure of the geocubes that cannot be remedied through additional dune restoration, renourishment, they may be ordered to be removed at the owner's full expense. Again, we agree to that condition with a very simple proviso. If we have a storm in the middle of the winter, we don't want to run out and cover the bags right up again if we're going to have another storm a month later. It seems to be a bit foolish. The second aspect of it is if the conditions have deteriorated at this site to the point that we're unable to cover it in a reasonable period of time, say example in the spring of any given time frame, it's likely because the waves are banging against these bags, and removal of them would instantly put us into an emergency situation, which, as you may recall from our original submittal to you, the whole point here is that these structures have been in place to provide this interim protection, and that to remove them now merely because there's a time issue would just place us right back into an emergency again. So although we agree to the condition that should they be exposed in a situation that we cannot remedy that by covering them up again, if that situation would fundamentally threaten the buildings that they are designed to protect, we would ask for an exception in that particular case.
But isn't there a mechanism that if there is an emergency, so that, say they grant this and this is the condition and they're exposed and there's an emergency, isn't there a mechanism for you to then go to Janus and ask for an emergency permit like this all started?
Yes, there is a provision to do that.
So that would be triggered. There's a storm, they're exposed, ZBA decision says remove them. You go to Janus and you say, I have an emergency. I want to keep them in. I want to, put new ones in. I mean, how in the world could this board draft something that would say they're exposed in an emergency, but now the emergency is so dire they have to stay in? How could we draft that?
I take your point. I don't know how you would draft it. I would be happy to review that with Karen and see if we could come up with something, or to review the sequence that you just described to me to ensure that the applicants are protected in that situation. Whether it's done through a condition of the zoning board approval or done through that administrative mechanism that you described, as long as it protects the structures, I think we would be amenable to that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is the whole point of her condition, is to say if they're exposed, then, then there's no harm anymore. There's no harm as it relates to starting the process again. There may be harm to you because you're saying they're exposed, and so there's a storm event. But in terms of the town code and allowing these things, which are supposed to be temporary in nature, that I thought that triggered that emergency procedure.
I had expressed during the last public hearing my concerns. My concerns were pretty much spelled out in the subsequent submissions from Conservation Board and to an extent from the Coastal Erosion Hazard Administrator. So I have significant concerns about what's being proposed here. Being that it's in the nature of emergency relief when there isn't an emergency right now. That's what troubles me. But I'm speaking for myself, and I'm not sure where other board members are on this. But I think we have to be very careful with this kind of application. Yeah.
Well, I think for the board, I think what we have to remember is these are not precedent setting, because anybody who's coming to us with geocubes already has these pre-existing cubes in. So it's not precedent setting to the extent that anybody's asking you for new ones. I think more now it's the balancing test between the benefit to the applicant in keeping these structures in and the detriment to the neighborhood in possibly taking them out, right? That's the balancing
Right.
for these. They certainly were meant to be temporary, and but that doesn't necessarily require you to demand that they be taken out. You have to balance it.
Which is what we do all the time.
Yes, yes, you do. Yeah, and to review, there were 3 conditions that the Conservation Board recommended for your board to consider should you determine that this application should be approved. And number 1 was relief needs to be strictly conditioned upon strengthened and natural protective feature, i.e. dune restoration, namely increase in the dune height and width. And I would say we're already complying with that. The applicant placed sand fence in front of the restored dune and planted the dune with beach grass. Both of those are functioning properly and collecting sand. And I know that Member Tuttle wanted to know what happened after that a couple of storms. And in the submittal that we gave to you, there's an appendix with a monitoring report from the February 1st storm. And although the wave wash did go all the way up to the toe of the dune, there was no subsequent erosion or damage to either the natural dune or to the geocubes. So that monitoring report is in your file. The second item that the Conservation Board said was revegetation the dune with salvaged and supplemental beach grass plugs. And the answer is yes, we agree. We have done that in the initial construction, and we'll continue to do that if renourishment or recovering is necessary. And finally, they said, finally, a covenant whereon the landowner would agree to allow for an annual inspection of the premises by the Environment Division. And we, of course, agreed to that condition and have been preparing and submitting monitoring reports to not just this board, but also the town trustees to keep people appraised of what the conditions are at the site. There were a number of other items that were brought up in both the administrator's letter and in the Conservation Board letter. I'm not going to go into them unless someone has a specific question they would like to ask me about it. It's not super lengthy, but I don't want to spend a lot of your time there. But there was one thing, and Mr. Chairman, you mentioned it earlier, in that an emergency doesn't exist at the site today, and I would respectfully disagree that an emergency doesn't exist at the site today, because the applicant, if they were to remove these structures, would put themselves right back into the same jeopardy that existed when the application was made and approved for the emergency action. So I would say that situation logically says the only reason that the emergency doesn't exist is because the geocubes are in place. So to remove them would put you right back into the emergency condition. The second.
Well, Aaron, what is, so, maybe this is in the written submission, but what is the emergency? Just looking at the survey, they're very close to the covered decks. If you went in there and took these out, would it, jeopardize the stability of the structures? I mean, what would it do?
It would expose the structures to damage and possible destruction from even moderate coastal storms, because the beach itself has been so eroded and so lowered in elevation, and the dune has been almost completely removed through erosion, that there's no natural protective feature there left to protect the buildings. And that goes right into another point I want to really highlight for the board. And when you look at our submittal, please look very closely at page 5 of 8. Well, there's more than one page 5 of 8. They're all page 5 of 8. But look at but they're in there. There's an aerial photo from 1976, and these buildings were built in 1960, and they were built quite well according to the 1960 standards. They were built by Admiral Snell, and he used the best piling technology that existed in 1960, which is obviously not something that we would do today. But the buildings were built 100 feet away from the dune. And the only reason that these buildings are in threat right now is not self-created by the applicant. It's because of actions by the government of stabilizing Shinnecock Inlet. Shinnecock Inlet is causing the erosion by trapping all of the sand. And that is the fundamental basis for the Army Corps of Engineers and the state of New York to create the Fire Island to Montauk project, which is going to restore this beach and bypass sand around the inlet that's blocked by the inlet. So the applicant has spent over the last 14 years, over $300,000 trucking in sand and rebuilding the natural protective feature, only to have it washed away within a year or two each time.
Are the structures still 100 feet from the dune?
No, the structures are now like 0 feet when we started and about 10 feet now. And that's the point. The point is the situation is created by an act of government that has interfered with the natural flow of sand along the beach, caused the erosion that has destroyed the dune. The applicant has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars doing natural restoration, which has proven ineffective over more than a decade, and is now forced into a situation where this is the only thing that will protect them from their buildings going into the ocean.
It really sounds to me like you want permanent geocubes.
No, it sounds to me like, when you go into the ER, they don't ask you what your diet is and adjust your cholesterol. They stop your bleeding. And that's what's going on here. You're bleeding sand out of this system because of the act of government stabilizing Shinnecock Inlet, which has a lot of benefits, but has a lot of casualties as well. And one of the casualties is in the entire beach from Hampton Bays through East Quogue and into Quogue. And that's why the federal government's going to spend tens of millions of dollars restoring that area. And
how many other properties in the vicinity have geocubes?
Well, they weren't built in 1960. The properties, these other properties were built in the 80s and 90s and were all built farther landward. I mean, these are unique structures. These are four giant 2-story buildings housing 72 units. There's nothing like it in East Quogue or Hampton Bays.
I also just wanted to point out for the board that the monitoring reports that we've been submitting also monitor any adverse impact to neighboring properties. So that's also contained in the monitoring reports, and going forward, we would be doing that as well, not just our property, but the beach and as a whole.
So I don't have the monitoring report in front of me. So what is going on to the east and to the west of your geocubes?
Just nothing. If those properties were restored and sand fence was erected, and there's no observable adverse impact either at this site or adjacent to the site since we installed the geocubes. There's no scouring, there's no increased erosion. There is merely a vegetated dune, which was.
I was just going to ask Aaron, on one side of these properties, didn't you and I discuss one of the villages actually allows the the jetties, the shore hardening structures? Because that's got to have a negative impact on your property as well, right?
Well, yeah, that's the jetties are at the inlet. That's, really, that's the root cause of all of this problem, is that the jetties block the sand. Anybody who's boated out of Shinnecock Inlet knows the size of that offshore bar. There's something on the order of 8 million cubic yards of sand that are in that offshore bar that were destined for the beaches of Hampton Bays and East Quogue and never got there. Similarly, if you boat inside Shinnecock Bay, you know where all those giant shoals are. That's sand that was flowing down the beach naturally from Southampton into Hampton Bays and East Quogue. They erected the jetties in 1960. They strengthened them in the 90s, and they act as an effective block, like a dam on the river of sand moving down the beach.
I thought one of the incorporated villages allowed the geocubes.
Yes, the Village of Quogue.
Quogue does.
Village of Quogue does. They're located to the west of this site, or downdrift. And they only authorize that, as does the DEC only authorize that, when the natural protective dune itself has been removed by erosion and there is no practical way to restore that natural feature so that it will still function. And we have an active DEC permit. The DEC permit requires us to keep it covered. We have a Southampton Town trustees permit. It requires the same thing. And we're doing all of those things that are required in those approvals. We can demonstrate to this board that between the date that geocubes were constructed and this date, there is no adverse impact on this property or the adjacent properties. I mean,
At this time, that's
correct.
You're talking 2.5 years before the project even starts, Aaron. You know what I mean? You know very well what can happen down there.
Of course I do. What's
that 2.5 years?
Either way, they are temporary. They're designated to be temporary.
Well, we got to make sure they're temporary. Give them another 6 months and come back and see us again. Let's find out what's going on.
Listen, I think someone on the board, I don't know if it was the chairman the last time, said, well, we're not going to give you 2 years. Maybe we'll give you 1 and come back. If you want us to come back and keep you informed, we're very happy to do that. This project is necessary, in my judgment, having done this for more than a week. This project is necessary to the survival of these buildings. And without it, they're going to go in.
And the goal is to ultimately get rid of the geocubes once the
project is in place and functioning.
Right. I understand it's a long time frame, but ultimately the goal is to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And it's beyond your control as to when the Army Corps acts. It's 2.5 years projected out, but ultimately they should restore the beach and we won't have a need for these.
And the technique that they're going to use has been proven very well, both in West Hampton Dunes, which was even a bigger disaster and is now fantastic, and what we did out in Sagaponack and Bridgehampton on 6 miles of beach, which is now, that's an award-winning beach.
Why wouldn't the DEC? Why wouldn't you go to the DEC to ask them for an extension on this? I mean, bringing this to this ZBA, we don't have expertise on this subject. And our conservation board is vehemently against extending this. So we're in a position now where we have to go against our chief environmental officer in the township and make a decision to extend something which we have really no expertise around evaluating.
Well, let me address that. Thank you. First of all, we have a valid DEC permit, and it is for a permanent installation. It is not for an interim installation. It is a permanent installation. And the condition of that permit is that we maintain the cover over the cubes and that we keep them informed, which is what we do. So they, who have a degree of expertise, have agreed with us and have given us conditions that we are following. As far as the position of the conservation board, all I can tell you is that I understand their position, which comes from a purist point of view, that we should not have these types of structures on the beach. But this board and I live in the real reality of, if we don't protect the thing that we have from a known hazard, we're going to lose it. And that's where we are today. So I would put to the board, in the same way you balance many of the other things in front of you, the detriment to the applicant of removal is disastrous. The detriment to the community of keeping them heretofore is been zero. And in fact, in all GeoCube installations in the town of Southampton, there's never been an impact. Never. So, you know, that's the record. And on the basis of those facts, I say to you, the balancing test is in favor of allowing these to stay on an interim basis.
And I just want to add, in terms of expertise, you know, well, we do not hear these kinds of applications very often. We hear them from time to time, not, you know, not very frequently, but from time to time. And we rely upon the submissions of the town officials and the applicants and someone like yourself, Aaron, to give us, you know, guidance on all of this. So I think we can handle it, even though it may be something we don't typically hear. But that having been said, Mike's points are, you know, legitimate points. You know, he's talking about our, you know, what we're getting from the Coastal Erosion Administrator and from the Conservation Board being very concerned about all of this.
And rightfully so. But I would point out to you that, you know, you go to the last page of each one of those correspondence, and they said, should you decide that this is, you know, something you want to approve, these are the conditions that we think will mitigate. And we have reviewed those conditions, and for the most part, we agree and want to work out the thing that Katie brought up. But we're not, we're in agreement, in general agreement with those conditions. In fact, we're doing most of them.
But that was said after they did not approve. They said only, should you approve?
That's right.
That doesn't mean that we do approve.
But and it's precisely right. And I think that, you know, for them to express their opinion is what they're supposed to be doing. But on the other hand, if they come to you and they say, should you decide to do this, these are the mitigations that we believe are appropriate, I think they've given you a path to say yes.
Board, I just wanted to point out too that we did submit a copy of the DEC permit, which is a 10-year permit, when we filed our initial application.
I'm not giving them an open carte blanche for 3 years. Let's be realistic. They're not going to start till 9/23. So we're talking 3 years down the road here. They need to come back and talk to us. Give them 6 months, 12 months, whatever. But I'm not giving them 3 years.
I think what Keith's saying is reasonable. What if we have them come back each spring to give us an update? That'll give the neighbors a chance to get on the record if they're having any issues with their property. We'll keep us abreast of the situation in case there's a change with the Army Corps. So I would agree with Keith and maybe have Aaron come back on an annual basis to give us an update.
But Keith didn't say annual. He said maybe 6 months.
He said maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months. So I agree with Keith's latter
I
statement.
think the less we give them, the better it is for our people at the conservation.
You know, one of the other things, Aram and Karen, that strikes me, and we spoke about it at an earlier hearing, is that, you know, is there any plan, long-term plan here, or is the plan to keep the sandbags in and just hope to God that storms don't come in and take the whole thing away? Anyway, I mean, reasonably speaking, you know, our country is all over the country. We're looking at coastal retreat, and these things may not survive until the FEMP project gets done. And is there any discussion amongst the board or amongst the owners in terms of a plan on how to perhaps reconfigure that property or reconfigure the buildings on that property?
Mike, there's no place for the buildings to go. You retreated from the beach. It's going to end up in the middle of Dune Road. And then Larry at Doctors, who wants to put 25 condos up, it's all going to meet in the middle.
Were you on the condo association, Keith?
He should be.
I don't want to sound so harsh. I'm not a big fan.
I think Mike's point is good though, too. Speaking to the uniqueness of this property, there is nowhere for them to retreat.
Right.
So I think you really have to do that balancing. I mean, I know that Conservation Board wants these out, but that is, Conservation Board relying on the strict letter of the town code, which is what this board varies. So I think you need to be open to that, that possibility.
I think the other thing, Mike, that I'd point out, and you make a good point, they do have to consider that, and redevelopment of a 72 condominium or a cooperative association with 4 buildings is, tens of millions of dollars over many, many years. This is not something you can do in a month, 6 months, or 18 months. So yeah, they do have to come to grips with that, number one. But number two, look at the sandbags themselves. We're not asking to put in a rock wall or a steel wall. We're talking about putting in sandbags, which have, by definition, cannot be permanent. The materials that they're made out of don't last the same kind of period of time. They don't have the same type of durability. This is truly an interim protection. And in fact, the height of the structure and the density of the structure is such that there may be a storm between now and then that overtops them and does destroy these buildings. But the question is, are we taking reasonable and prudent measures to both protect the buildings and to protect the environment? And is there a rational basis for making that judgment? And I would submit to you, based on the record, there is.
Well, it sounds to me like at a minimum, the board is going to want to have you come back within whether it's 6 months or 12 months. It sounds to me like that's, I think, part of what's going to happen here. But the rest of it, I'm not sure about. I'm not sure where the board members are. And I know there was just a submission today that we need to really look at before we reach any, I think, larger conclusions, because that's all part of our job. But I appreciate everything that you're saying, and these are certainly things that we're all going to consider when deciding, what to do with this application. Okay. Are there any other questions of members of the board or Katie? Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Round Dune Inc.? This is for property located at 101 Dune Road in East Quad. If you are waiting to be heard, this will be the time to raise your hand to let us know.
Yes, we have Kevin McAllister coming in.
Okay.
Come on, Kev. There you go.
Okay, good evening, Kevin. We can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Okay.
There we go. I just have to swear you in if you can state your name and address.
Kevin McAllister. I'm founder and president of Defend H2O based in Sag Harbor.
And the address?
3780 Noyak Road.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you can tell us your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman, and my condolences for your loss. I had addressed this issue when it was on a parallel track, I guess December of 19, before the trustees. And, obviously within a trustee code as well as, town code, I won't spend a lot of time on the implications of geotextiles. I will tell you they are classified by New York State as shoreline hardening structure. I guess in a flippant way, I refer to them as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Mr. Chichunian talked about basically no harm, no foul currently because they're not under wave attack. And that will change the complexion of the beach, potentially impacting, public access to public trust doctrine. So, these are important considerations. I pay very close attention to the trends, both in the Peconics, Long Island Sound, and the Atlantic beaches via aerial photo and just field reconnaissance. And I've been sounding this alarm for at least 10 years that we are seeing the incremental hardening of shoreline in these basins. We are seeing the implication of lost beaches, loss of habitat, and again, the public trust doctrine. So, this is a very serious matter, and it's not restricted, of course, to the East End or Long Island. I've assisted Michigan. They're trying to craft local laws in some of the townships because the lake has been so high. And again, there's been a trend with the structures coming in and geotextiles. So they are seeking to ban these structures, as Southampton did. Hawaii recently, really, there was a thorough article that I shared with some Southampton staff of the trend there with the geotextiles coming in under variances, and now they're finding it impossible to remove them. They are losing public beaches as a result of this. The long-term trend for Dune Road, if you consider, and we talk about FIMP, I call it the sand cavalry. We've been waiting for years, and now we're pushed back 2.5 more years. Aram talked about sand bypassing. This was discussed 20 years ago. New York State Department of State was willing to build a pump station. It could have been a roving dredge that could hit that outside bar as well as the inshore delta. Ultimately, because of opposition, they withdrew their support. The county would not take on ultimately operation of this. And First Coastal was silent on this matter. So let's not talk about the need for sand bypassing 20 years later. This is something that's been in the a need for a long time. I've been very vocal about it, and I'm pleased the Army Corps has incorporated it into their FIMP plan. Back to Dune Road, when you consider sea level rise, in the next 40 years, we are looking between 11 and 30 inches. That's monumental change. Aside from putting sand in and basically keeping a beachhead on the Atlantic beach, the backside of Dune Road, the Shinnecock Bay, look at the changes of wetlands in there. It's like an amoeba moving with a change of habitat. Army Corps, as part of FIMP, is including some sand filling on the bay side. They're trying to keep pace.
For this property, Kevin, if the board tells them to take out the geocubes, what would they need to do to stabilize those buildings?
With the geotubes coming out right now, obviously you are creating vulnerability. Obviously, sand is the only matter here. So,
but how much would they be able to stabilize it? By how much sand would they have to dump there if this board denies the variance?
I'm not sure about that. It's I'd refer to engineers on storm events, rise, surge. I mean, there's factors that come in as to what would stabilize that area. First and foremost, getting that bypass so there's at least some volume sand that would be moving down the pike. What I want to stress, though, is long-term change here. Based on my experience, credentials, training, I think it's untenable over the decades to think that we are going to live in a stable environment on Shinnecock Dune Road. Again, the bay waters are coming up short of wholesale armoring. I'm talking about seawalls and filling of the barrier island. Back to the geotubes, I just urge this board, while we're waiting for FIMP, let's not memorialize bad coastal policy. We understand, again, the implications of these structures. It's very difficult to allow them to come in and then say you got to pull them out. I understand you're behind a rock in a hard place. Mr. Chichunian, I mean, obviously the rationale, there's rationale to what he's saying, but I'm asking you, I guess, be mindful of long-term implications here because, we either are all in on keeping these structures out or just let's stop the pretense, allow them to come in and just rim the coastline because that's where we're going with this.
But listen, I want it for the record, that's not fair. This board is not legislating that geocubes are permitted within the town, just like they're not legislating that houses be 45 feet tall. They're here for variances for specific instances.
And Kate, I'm being very clear in urging the board, again, decline to memorialize the structure or require them to pull it out. And that's tough love, but that's what's necessary. Thanks for your consideration to my remarks this evening.
Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with the application of Round Dune Inc. for 101 Dune Road in East Quogue?
I see no other hands.
No other hands. Okay. All right. Well, Brian had lean on it. Well, Katie, what do you want to do here?
I mean, I know we have a ton of testimony on this, but since we just got written submissions, I'd like to have one more public hearing so you guys can go over the written submissions and so that Aram can consider what I was saying about, if they're exposed, does he have a way to get them via emergency? Because I think that's if that's a tough one to renege on a condition. If they're exposed, they're exposed. And the whole point is to take them out if they're exposed. So I mean, I'd like to entertain one more public hearing on it.
Okay, is everybody good with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'd like to have current aerial photographs of the site at the next public hearing to demonstrate what it looks like within a few days of the hearing.
Okay.
Just to speak to that, we can definitely get you some current aerials. I don't know if they'll be within a few days, but regardless, we'll get you ground photos within a few days. Aerials might be.
He just means before the hearing.
Before the hearing.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some drone photos of what the current conditions are. I've been down there several times, Aaron, and I may go before the next hearing. But I'm very interested in this, and I'm very interested in the implications of this decision.
So we will complete another monitoring report between now and the next meeting with up-to-date images.
Okay. All right. So my next question is, when would you like to come back?
What are the next available dates?
Well, Katie, we didn't go over how our agendas look for the next couple of meetings, but I would think, yeah.
I think we're good for April 1st and 15th.
Okay.
Either one.
Yeah, either of those dates would work.
Pick a date. Let's go.
I would say that the 15th, so we can get these aerial images and get everything to the board in advance of the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so Brian isn't here. He's going to keep lead on the application, but I'll make the motion that we adjourn the application of Round Dune Inc. for all purposes until our April 15th meeting.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you both for your testimony, or all of you for your testimony tonight. And we'll see you on April 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening.
You too. Good evening.
I can't wait to see what Shinnecock Inlet's gonna look like by 9/23. Huh? Forget about Round Dunes.
Start dredging.
All right, I've had my comment. Item 7 on the agenda is 65 Cliff Drive LLC, 65 Cliff Drive in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-9-1-18.1.
Okay, who is here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Madeline Van John, Tarbert and Lester PLLC. I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
So this has been before you a few times, and last time the issue that was holding things up was we had a memo from the building inspector with some issues that we had to look into. We have since looked into that and everything has been resolved. I believe Marjorie Riley sent a new memo clarifying that all of her concerns had been addressed. And so basically where we're at now with this is that in response to the board's initial feedback, we made some changes to the proposal. It's been shifted 2 feet away from the northern property line, which significantly reduced the side yard pyramid request on the northerly side as well. It's been reduced from around 1,900 cubic feet to just over 1,100 cubic feet. And we've eliminated the front pyramid request entirely. And there were also pyramid requests associated with the garage on the south property line, and that has been eliminated as well. And so basically on the initial list, there were quite a few variances, and where we are at now is we are only asking for one pyramid variance of 1188 cubic feet on the northerly side. So it's been reduced significantly as the board had requested at the original meeting. And pretty much we feel that the way it's now proposed is well within the character of the neighborhood. This board has recently granted similar and larger pyramid variances in the neighborhood due to the fact that all of these lots are very constrained, and the goal is basically to keep all of the development back away from the water, which is what the conservation board wants. So it sort of limits the development area, and I think the applicants have done a good job in reducing it as much as possible in response to the board's comments. So I can answer any questions that anyone might have.
Well, I just wanted initially, I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to ask whether there have been communication with neighbors at all.
So I received an email from Gina Rigdon, who said she was representing some of the neighbors. She asked me for the plans. I provided her with the most recent set of plans that we had submitted. And she asked me some questions about the building inspector memo that we were waiting on, but I didn't get any particular requests or feedback regarding any changes they might want from them. She did say that she had them and would review them, but I didn't get any sort of request to do anything in particular. So that's where we're at with that.
All right. So there's been changes to the application. The only relief that's being requested now is some pyramid relief. That there's no longer any setback relief, Madeline?
No, there's no setback relief at all. The house was moved over 2 feet to avoid that. So no setback relief at all.
Okay.
And there's no third floor, Madeline, is that right?
No, that's been removed as well. The plans have been revised as Marjorie Riley directed, so that it complies and there's no third story.
Okay. Could you give me the amount of pyramid relief again? I know you mentioned it to us.
So we're requesting 1,188 cubic feet, just on the one side, on the north side.
On the north. Okay.
My question, Madeline, was about the pool. Is the pool still need relief?
No. So basically, the way that was written up was that they determined that the pool needed relief because of total side yard with the pool on one side and the house on the other. When we moved the house, neither side needs relief now, so the pool doesn't require any relief.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
So for the neighbors who are here, what this all means is that the application now complies with almost every section of the zoning code except for pyramid. So they're asking for some pyramid relief on the north side. Other than that, what is now being proposed complies with zoning, and they do not need relief from this board for anything except for 1,188 cubic feet of pyramid relief.
On the north side.
That's on the north side, and that's where we are. So, and I had asked about the attorney for the applicant about whether there was communication with the neighbors, because I was hoping there would have been. Sounds like there was not. Nevertheless, the application has been significantly revised, and it may not still be satisfactory to you, but it's been significantly revised, and most of the requested relief is no longer being requested. So anyway, with that having been said, well, before we go to the neighbors, just want to ask, are there any other questions or members of the board, or Katie or Anthony of Madeline at this time?
I would just like to say that I very much appreciate the reduction that's been made in the application. I think there's been substantial changes based on our comments, and I very much appreciate the changes that you incorporated into your plans. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, so who amongst the neighbors would like to be heard first? Tiffany?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I believe I previously saw you in.
You
So
have.
If you just state your name.
My name is Tiffany Gavin. I live at 53 Cliff Drive.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. Mr. Grossman, I would like to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I would also like to report that President Trustee Schultz announced at Monday, March 15, 2021 trustee meeting that the Bay Constable is to issue a violation on 65 Cliff Drive. And this is going on the previous violation that was imposed on Cliff on July 20th, 2020. And this has spurred additional violation inquiries from the Army Corps and the DEC, and they're looking into put violations on. Has the garage setback been increased? It was 16 feet. Has it been increased to be in compliance at 20 feet?
The garage is in compliance with the setback now. We're not asking for any variances for the garage.
So it's been set back to exceed 20 feet? If it's 16, you still need, you still are requesting a setback relief.
It's been reviewed by the building inspector, and all the variances are, she's determined what variances we need. So the proposed location of the garage does not require a variance.
Okay, could we see that information, because that has not been presented to us? I'm also concerned that if the garage is in fact 16 feet off of the street, as the last plans have not notably changed that setback, that is not in compliance, and you do require a variance. And driving around the neighborhood of the 228 homes throughout Bay Point, a detached garage only 16 feet off of the property is not in keeping with the character. And allowing such a setback would set a precedent that would ultimately alter the character and charm of Bay Point. While it also bears noting that this applicant has already been granted relief for lesser wetland building setbacks and trade for the removal of a functioning bulkhead. While I understand that you've impressed the point that this is a small property, I must impress the point that that pool was put in on a different permit. So the permit that they put that pool in would probably not have been granted had they put it in with a detached garage, the scale and scope of the house. And what they have done is created a nuisance and adversely impacted the environment. We have not had any assurance, and we have been requesting that we've been assured as a community that the applicant has provided evidence, which we have not seen, as to why they have satisfied requested variances standards and provide supporting evidence to prove that no negative impact should come from the reliefs that they're seeking. I do appreciate that you are saying such changes have been made. We're not aware of them. We haven't seen them. And they have set a precedent of not really looking with a keen eye to the impacts that their decisions have had on our neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Else, Tiffany?
Oh, and the parking spots. If there are 6 bedrooms, the garage is designed at like 14 feet wide. Unless we're pushing 2 cars in side by side and actively moving out of the moonroof, how are 2 cars fitting in the garage? And then in the driveway, 2 more cars, there's 6 bedrooms. Have the bedroom amounts been reduced? Without are you allowed to park on the street there? There are signs, you're not allowed to park on the street at night. So how does the parking spots that are being proposed on this property satisfy the amount of bedrooms that are being proposed in this design? Unless they've reduced from the 3rd floor, they've reduced the amount of bedrooms, they moved back the garage to 20-foot setback. So all of these things are they taken care of? Have we any proof of this information to be fact? Are there enough parking spots?
I'll make sure that the building department looks at the parking.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
We go.
Okay, Tiffany, if you're done, then the birdies, I can have you. I think I both spoke last time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Grossman, condolences, of course. 65 Cliff Drive not only has not presented us with the new plans, which would take care of whatever variances they're asking for. But we feel that our riparian rights have been intruded upon by their removal of the bulkhead, the cutoff. We have no more deep water canal. I understand that may or may not be in your jurisdiction, but according to the trustee meeting, they are readying a lawsuit against 65 Cliff Drive for this very, very serious offense to the environment. And since I hear reports about how concerned everybody is with conservation and the environment, this needs to be taken very seriously. And whether or not that is your jurisdiction, the fact that the county is now going to be filing a lawsuit against 65 Cliff Drive for not coming forth with a remediation plan has impacted our property, reduced the appraisal and the valuation of our property. We are, and I have it in writing from many appraisers right now, that our trees are going to be damaged by their dry well systems. They have made no outreach to us as neighbors. It's not only our property, and I'm sorry George Kalides is not on tonight, his property has been impacted on the other side of 65 Cliff Drive, and they have not one time tried to meet with us. We took to heart your suggestion that they should meet with the neighbors, and they have never, ever reached out to us through our attorney, through our environmentalist, nothing. They're going ahead with whatever plan they want to do and ruining the environment. They've killed the mussel beds in the area, in the Bay Area near us. They're killing the clam beds. They're killing what new oyster beds were set. And I realize you're only involved with a building permit, but this is all coordinated and this is all part of the environment. And I am so upset that you would say that you're only interested in the particular cubic feet of variance that they're going to do. They are destroying this neighborhood. They're destroying it.
We didn't say we weren't interested. I was just clarifying for the record exactly what the relief is that is revised, that is now being requested. You understand?
We haven't seen the relief. My husband's an architect. He needs to see the plans so that we can.
Can I just say that Gina Rigdon and I spoke, and I provided a Gina Rigdon who said she was acting on behalf of the neighbors, including the Brodies and the Gavins. She said that she was acting on behalf of those neighbors, and I provided her the most recent plans. So
okay, she's not here tonight. She is not here tonight. I have asked for a postponement until she has time to review it, and I've not been given that postponement. And here we are once again fighting for our lives and our property.
Not take requests from neighbors for adjournments. The adjournments come from the applicants. Does not come because a neighbor can't make the meeting.
The neighbors are here.
Okay, can I speak?
Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to, you're talking about the cubic footage on the sky exposure plane on the north side. That really isn't very much. We live on 61. We will be looking at their north side. They have plenty of room to move the house on the south side to pick up that cubic footage. So that's not a hardship, okay? Right now it's paper. It's not a hardship. As far as parking goes, there's plenty of room between the pool and the house to put a parking garage, the proper distance from the property line, the proper distance from the street, and still get the proper amount of cars on that site for a 6-bedroom house. The other thing is that I have called the surveyor to do a survey so I could see where our property line trees and their trees are vis-a-vis the property line, because when they start to put their dry wells in, I'm going to lose some of my trees, which are substantial. They have, the other question that I have is the pool. You drive by the pool, it looks like an above-ground pool. If we're talking about neighborhood compliance, we have a few pools in our area that are in the front yard, and they all start at ground level. This thing is about 4 or 5 feet above ground level, and they are planning a garage for in front of it for go-karts or something like that, because they're probably not going to be big enough. And they are going to, as Tiffany said, create problems because they're the other cars that will pull in there will be over the property line or not in compliance with the parking after 11 o'clock at night. As I said, there's room for a parking garage between the pool and the building. The additional, the space that they would move over to make the compliance on the sky exposure plane could go on the south side with no problem, with no zoning interference. The problem is, the thing is they are keeping the existing foundation or the existing excavation. I haven't seen any drawings that the lawyer says is underway or has been approved or whatever. We haven't seen them. I can't comment on them. But basically, on the verbiage of it, it doesn't make sense. The other thing is that since they tore out the wall, the retaining wall, and all these waters are flooding in and out, and I can walk across to Long Beach at low tide and not get my feet wet and not get the bottom of my cane wet, because at low tide, it's all sand. Used to be a canal in there. So I would say that at this point, maybe we need to do a survey, and the pool that they have in there is not valid. Maybe the setback and the wetland requirements are no longer good. So, I mean, let's get it together and finish this up. I have nothing more to say.
We've ordered a new survey for our house because the land has changed so dramatically as a result of their taking out the retaining wall. And now we have a beach in front of our house instead of a waterway.
To get back to the survey, I will have my trees tagged, and along the property line, they have a number of different kinds of dry wells and so on, that when they dig them, I'm afraid they're gonna kill our trees. It's happened to me in the front of my house, and I have had, because I put in a dry well per code, and it killed some trees, and I had to replant them. So I'm speaking from experience.
And our other neighbor, George Kalides, on the other side at
Hi, George.
69 Cliff Drive is here. He's lost his complete dock. He's lost it. Whatever money he had in having a dock and having whatever, he can no longer use it. It's finished.
All right. Okay. Any other questions of the Brodies?
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. It's, hi.
Can I ask you? Hold on a second. Any questions from the board of the Brodies? Okay. If not, George, go ahead. Did I previously swear you in?
no, you have not. So go ahead.
Okay. So you can state your name and address for the record, please.
George Colatides, 34 Green Meadow Lane, New Canaan, Connecticut, 06840.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can give us your comments.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate all the time you guys have allocated to us. There seems to be a course of dealing, which I find bothersome. 65 Cliff Drive's lawyer is on saying that they've communicated to Agena, and regrettably Agena is on vacation, and that the plans are all in compliance. I've listened to these meetings in the past where they've made such statements and they turn out not to be true. As far as I know, the latest set of plans we received, that Agena received and that we've seen, it shows the garage still at 16 feet back. So unless there was a new set of plans set at the last minute to Agena, what we're in possession of does not show compliance with the 20-foot setback for the garage. 1. 2, the pool hasn't been covered much prior to today. but it is a monstrosity. There is a huge cement bathtub on the side of my house. I mean, it is awful. It's absolutely awful. I don't know how they got a permit to put that in there in the first place. You know, I don't know if you guys have been out to see it. I don't know how that could possibly comply. It's got to be 4 or 5 feet above ground. So I don't, you know, I haven't studied or don't understand what those rules are. But it doesn't make sense to me. But really, there feels like there's a course of dealing here that's a level of dishonesty. Oh, we sent a Gina everything. Everything's in compliance. I heard them say that the last time. They got called out on that, where there are a couple of things. Oh, well, you're right. That's not in compliance. That is not in compliance. The lawyer on this phone call speaks in huge generalities. Lawyer for 65. Just answer the question. Is the garage 20 feet back or not? It's a yes or no question. It's a simple question. Answer it affirmatively.
Okay. George, what else would you like to tell us?
That's it. I'm obviously upset. I know it's not your guys' issue with what they did with the bulkhead. I bought that house for one reason, to go boating. I can't go boating. As far as I'm concerned, the house is literally worthless to me without my ability to boat. I love the Long Island Sound. I love to fish. I've spent my entire life out there fishing. They've destroyed my house.
Sounds like everyone's pretty upset, which is really unfortunate. Okay. All right. Madeline, do you want to respond?
I just, regarding the pool, we're not asking for any variances for the pool. And as for the garage, it's never been noticed for any variance necessary for the garage. And the survey indicates that it complies with the setback. The building department has never raised any questions with us regarding the garage. We're happy to make sure that there's still an agreement that it doesn't require a variance, but the only variance they ever said the garage needed was a pyramid variance from the south side, which we have now eliminated. So we're just...
It was also, it was advertised for placement in the, to be located in the total side yard.
Oh, correct, yes, but there's never been any discussion regarding the front yard. So if there is a concern, we're happy to get the building department's interpretation on that. But that's never been something we've been asking for, and it's never been raised by the building department. So we're happy to get their interpretation on that while the written record is open, but that's all. And regarding the situation with the bulkhead, I mean, that's obviously a separate matter, and we are working with the trustees and the other involved agencies to come to a solution. There's a lot of different parties involved, but as this board knows, that's just outside of the jurisdiction of what is going on here.
So Madeline, I just want to mention, if you can speak with the building department and maybe speak with Katie, because I want to make absolutely sure that there isn't any other relief that the applicant needs.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the latest memo from the building inspector says that we are all set, but we're happy to confirm with that and make sure. And I'll speak to Katie about that as well.
Okay. All right. And then, otherwise, in terms of the neighbors, they're really unhappy. It's a shame that there can't be anything that can be done to address their concerns. It sounds like there's going to be litigation and things are going to go on. And and the neighbors are very upset, and it sounds like they have a reason to be very upset. So, but that's the bulkhead aspect of this application. The prior application that we heard had to do with relief for these geocubes, which are before us. This application is setback relief and pyramid relief, but the bulkhead is not in our jurisdiction.
And if there's an ongoing violation on the property, that doesn't impact your jurisdiction?
If there's a violation on the property, code enforcement needs to be contacted immediately. We are not an enforcement body.
Regarding the garage, doesn't the code say it has to be all one building? The garage and the building are two buildings. The garage, as interpreted by our neighborhood, 99% of the time is attached to the house. In this case, it's not attached to the house, and the placement is disgusting compared to the other buildings that do happen to have detached garages They're beautiful. They create little courtyards. They're far enough from the street, and you would not think twice about saying this is ugly. However, in this case, I think we'd get a lot of comments on it being ugly.
Well, unfortunately,
Ugly, just.
I could say that. Wait a minute. I could say that.
I don't know, but
I'm a licensed architect.
I
I have a degree in urban design. I know from ugly. I know from stuff that blends.
and I appreciate that.
This does not blend.
But what I'm getting at is that at least as of right now, the attorney for the applicant is indicating that it does not require variance relief. That is the garage, or maybe it does. I mean, Katie mentioned about
I believe it does, sir.
and maybe it does. If that's the case, then we'd have to deal with that. You know, we're going to need to have that clarified.
Ms. Garvin, when you're clarifying the setback for the garage and you're looking into the parking, it's noted as a 2-car detached garage, but the width of that garage would not satisfy 2 cars. It just wouldn't. So could I impress upon you to look into that as well?
Well, these are questions for the building department, so I'm absolutely going to be, refer them to Marge, but whether
Thank
it's 2-car, whether it says 2-car or whatever, it's allowed to be detached. Madeline has said that it complies. If it doesn't comply, then they can't build it without a variance.
Well, what are the setbacks, Madeline? Ms. Venjan, what is the setback for a detached garage? I was under the impression it was 20 feet. So if it's 16, how are you saying that it's in compliance and doesn't require a variance?
Well, she's not going to answer these questions. She has a memo from Marge that says it complies. We're going to confirm that it complies. They don't want to close this application if they don't have all of the variances either. So,
okay, I respect that and appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Madeline, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? Is there anyone else?
Mr. Grossman. Mr. Grossman.
Yes.
Mr. Grossman.
Yes, Mr. Tuthill.
Who is representing the neighbors? Is it Gina representing the neighbors?
Yes.
Yes, and she's not here.
And Gina needs to talk to the people that are paying the bill. You know what I mean? And get a hold of Madeline. Maybe they can all have a sit down. I know it was discussed earlier. Go ahead and laugh. But I'm just telling you.
No, and Gina has been at the public hearings. She's aware of this application.
Yeah, but you couldn't be here tonight. Apparently, she was not available. The neighbors are here. And the question is what we're going to do moving forward.
It sounds like Gina hasn't even told them about the changes. Why
there weren't any, Mr. Tuthill, there weren't any changes. The application with the drawings that were sent to us do not represent what is being presented by Ms. Venjan. We also have Lori Fishman at 41 Cliff Drive, who is having complications trying to speak against this application. We are not the only people that are bothered by this. And while we totally understand and respect the different boards and their responsibilities, there really needs to be an understanding that if it's 20 feet and you're at 16 feet, you're not in compliance. If you have 6 bedrooms and you require 6 parking spots, you don't physically have them. These are facts that we're presenting that speak solely to your board. We understand that the bulkhead's not in your application and for your jurisdiction, but these points are in fact. So Ms. Venjan, no disrespect for you, but you coming to us saying one thing is being presented. Well, we don't see any evidence of this. And Lee Sneed, our attorney, has reached out. It's not only a Gina. So there is a disconnect of information. So Lee Sneed has reached out to Mr. Lester with regard to this application. And Aram has reached out as well. So there's not only been a Gina. So with all due respect to a Gina not being here, and we did ask for an adjournment, but there are points that are speaking very clearly to your jurisdiction. And Mr. DeSessa has pressed upon the point 2 different times that that pool was probably put in on the wrong application. So it's not just one thing, Ms. Venjan, that we're speaking to. There's many different issues. So it really needs to be looked upon with a keener eye than a broad sweep of saying, this is the application, we're all in compliance.
And
We want a
one more
beautiful
thing-
house to that neighborhood. We
But-
want
but,
that.
folks, you know, I've been very allowing it to
have.
go on without any limitations of any kind, but I really do think we need to wrap it up for tonight.
Got it. We're asking for an adjournment, please.
Okay, I understand. So I want to ask the rest of the board, do we want to keep this open? Do we want to have another public hearing date?
I do not.
I do not. I'd like to close it, except for written submissions. That would be, written submissions would be accepted up until April 19th with a decision on May 6th. Obviously, we want to be confirmed exactly what the request is for relief from this board. But that's my recommendation.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Although I'm not a big favorite here closing this off right now, but written submissions allows us to maybe do that. Fine, aye.
Why are we losing our public voice in this?
Excuse me, Tim, but we're voting.
Did I?
Okay, Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Thank you all for your testimony tonight. You can submit anything you want to in writing up until April 19th, and so can Gina. So anyone wants to submit, they can submit to us in writing, including reviewing what's in the file and responding to it. But that's what the board has decided. So thank you all for your comments this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, do we want to take a short break? We can go on for 2 hours.
Sure.
Okay, all right. We're going to take a short break now, folks.
So you here?
Yeah, I'm here, huh?
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
How's everybody doing?
Ready to rock.
Okay. Charlie, whenever you're ready.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Back on. Including reviewing what's. Ready to rock.
I'm good.
Charlie? Keith, whenever you're ready. Keith, we can't hear you. Nope.
Here we go.
There we go.
Item 8 on the agenda, Michael Esposito and Louis Esposito, 730 Flanders Road in Flanders, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-143-2-48.
We're looking for Linda Ruisi.
No.
Nope, nobody here on the.
Susan Herman? Is Susan
All
Herman?
right, I'm gonna ask the board to just second call this because this is a final adjournment. So let's just second call it, see if she tunes in, and then if not, I have a resolution for Adam to read.
Who's next, Katie?
Next is Susanna.
Okay.
Item 9 on the agenda, 16 Sagamore LLC, 16 Sagamore Road, Net Maze, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-230-1-20.
Okay, that's you, Susanna.
Hello.
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 Okay, so we're
Are
back on and wanted to maybe ask if you can give us an update as to where we are.
Okay, Susanna Herman and consultants for the applicants, 16 Sagamore LLC. I don't know how much you guys remember from the previous hearing a few weeks ago. The application is for a proposed detached garage, which needed a rear yard setback variance because we're in a resort waterfront business district, and there is only, we're proposing a 10-foot setback where 50 is required, but there's no building envelope. Can I go ahead and share my screen? That's probably the best.
Sure.
Sure.
You may.
I talk better with something to point at. So let me get this off the screen. Okay. So we are proposing a garage on a lot that is 10,000 square feet in the Resort Waterfront Business District. At the last hearing, the board was fairly clear that they wanted to see the size of the garage reduced to 24 by 24, which is what we did. We submitted revised plans showing the proposed garage reduced in size to 24 by 24. The previous proposal had been 25 by 30, so we've reduced that pretty substantially. Just to remind you, there is no allowable building envelope here because the rear yard and the front yard setbacks overlap. So there's no location on the site that is conforming. And the existing house is quite small. It's only 22.4 by 22.4. So the second variance that we're asking for is that it be approved despite not being subordinate in size to the primary structure.
And what is the percentage between the primary structure and the revised garage?
Well, the previous proposal was actually larger than the primary, and we are still larger. The current proposed footprint of the garage is 576 square feet, whereas the house footprint is 502 square feet.
So I wasn't at the last public hearing, the
Right.
last meeting. I would have asked this question had I been here, but in any case, I, as a board member, have never voted for an accessory structure that is larger than the primary structure. I've never done it. I'm not sure where other board members are in this. I know they gave you these instructions and you just followed those instructions. I appreciate that. But I, for one, can't vote for this. So
I don't, Suzanne, I don't remember those were the instructions that you got. Who suggested that to you?
I believe it was initially Brian DeSussa who.
Brian said that you should go back and do that. Did he say, well, if you did that, then we'd be okay?
He said, I want to see this reduced to 24 by 24, that you had given approval for a similar type variance, that the board granted approval for an accessory structure that was 24 by 24, a proposed garage that was not subordinate to the primary structure. And I believe there were at least 2 other board members that chimed in that they agreed with that. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but.
And they agreed to a subsidiary structure that was larger than the house?
I don't, on the other application, I don't know.
No, I'm saying the people on our board agreed. I don't remember anybody agreeing to that. So
I don't think it was discussion of the percentage. I think that's part of the problem. For whatever reason, that wasn't. I don't think that was in the last public hearing. So.
I think that typically what Brian is looking for is what's the typical 2-car garage. The building department normally will give a building permit for a 2-car garage, regardless of the size. What makes this one unusual is because I think it has storage up on the second floor. Is that right?
That's correct. The second floor, let's see.
So that's typically what Brian is getting at when he asks people to look at, 24 by 24, 22 by 24, what's a typical 2-car garage?
Right. We were originally proposing a slightly larger garage because there was basically a storage shed added onto the back that added 5 feet. As part of the project, there's the previous owner had constructed a shed without permits, which we are going to remove. There's an outdoor shower being removed. So in order to compensate for that storage area, they were planning to add some storage on the back of the proposed garage, but that's been eliminated.
But the garage is the garage is 2 stories, right? So it's not 570. It's not 576. It's double that.
Well, the second story is smaller. Let me find the flip.
But that's that's an important.
Right. So
it's not
the second floor of the garage is 365 square feet. So that's a total of 941 square feet proposed.
Right.
Yeah, I recall the meeting, and I recall Brian's recommendation that you reduce the size of the footprint of the garage. My objection was to offering pyramid relief for a rear dormer that, I know you said that the owner was hoping to have some architectural integrity or similarity, and who's going to see it in the rear of the garage except the neighbors? But I do recall you now returning with comments that were made to reducing the size of the footprint. Now, whether or not that's going to satisfy other members of the board or not, I don't know. But
some photographs that I was cut off pretty quickly during my presentation at the last hearing and told come back with 24 by 24. So that's what we did. I didn't even get a chance to go through all of my photos. So perhaps I'll do that now. This is looking from the road. The house, this is the existing house, obviously, with a second story deck that comes off the side. Elevated, and this is storage below.
What's the total square footage of that house you just shown?
502 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
But now that I'm looking at that, I'm questioning my my math here.
500 square feet for the house?
That sounds pretty small, don't it?
I'm sorry, that's the footprint.
Right.
Because there is a second story.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, it's 1,003 square feet total.
So
Well, that
the house is
better.
1,003 and the
Right, and
garage
the
is
garage is
141.
correct. Correct.
Those are the two numbers we're dealing with.
Those are the two numbers that you're dealing with. So it's
Okay.
not larger. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm looking at my notes from last month. So
I'm sorry.
I have that last time you said the house was 1,000 square feet. Well, that's not much off.
1,003 is
1,003
the number that I have.
just as close as could be.
Right. So I may have rounded
Yeah,
rounded
but
down.
we still have, they're almost the same size, right?
They're almost the same size. Yes.
Yeah.
But the garage is about 5-10% smaller.
Right. So I don't feel like it would be out of character with the neighborhood. This is the property next door, where you can see this garage is within 2 feet of the property line. The house on the other side, there's that survey of the property to the east. This is across the street. You can see there's 3 garages basically on the property line here, obviously all not in conformance with setbacks or with pyramid. And if you look at the aerial photograph, close up, you can see on the property to the west as well, there's a cottage here that's less than a foot from the property line. Again, it's resort waterfront business district. A lot of the houses are existing non-conforming, too close to the property lines.
Suzanne, what about a 1-car garage instead of a 2-car garage?
I mean, that's not what they had in mind. They really need the storage for 2 cars on the site.
I thought you just said that they had storage underneath those steps in the house, right?
Well, not for cars, not for cars. That's just where you might put, I don't know, kayaks or lawn furniture or something.
I mean, 2 ways of dealing with this. One way would be what Helen is suggesting. Actually, a few ways of dealing with this. One way is what Helen's suggesting, having a 1-car garage instead of a 2-car garage. Another way of dealing with this would be have 2 garages rather than a single garage. And the third option, as opposed to asking us to conclude that an accessory structure that's larger than the primary structure is accessory, would be to connect the garage to the house, which does not appear to be a viable option under the circumstances because you'd have to go all the way across the property line.
Right. The ultimate plan for this property has not been finalized. Obviously, it's a very small house. The homeowner at some point in the future does plan to probably add on to this existing house or rebuild, but that's completely up in the air and not anything in the near future. In the current circumstances, what they need is a garage with some storage above.
But they could have 2 garages and there'd be no problem.
Yeah, but I think that would look horrible.
I don't think so.
What would be the purpose of that?
Because then you don't have any problem about the proportion between the 2 buildings.
We've done it before, Suzanne. I understand what you're saying, but we have asked applicants to do it before and they've done it before. said instead of one big garage, have two smaller ones. On a bunch of occasions, we've done that.
Just right next to each other, or, I mean,
Or I suppose, well, I don't know what the options are in terms of where things can be located.
well, there's no building envelope that complies. So we would need setback relief for whatever is done. So there's no way to do this without some sort of variance. In my opinion, one building would look much better on this property than two buildings half the size.
Yeah, but the problem is that once we go down the road of saying proving an accessory structure that is larger than the primary structure, we have let the horse out of the stable, and that is the end of that. Really, once we do that, what is it?
Why do you?
Yeah. Go ahead, Keith.
Why do you need a two-car garage?
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning, Susanna. Just have a one-car garage. There are a lot of people who have no garages.
Right, there is currently no garage, but
I've seen many houses in Hampton Bays without garages.
Well, or without the storage on top, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, they're asking for something, and of course, they're welcome to come and ask for this, Susanna. But this board is not inclined to, as Adam is saying, it's a tough push to ask this board to approve an accessory structure that's 100% of the primary structure. It's
almost 100%.
Almost 100%. It's not a precedent that we want to set, and it's not something that we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I assume that's the consensus. I'm hearing that from a few people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would like to ask if we could adjourn this then, and I can go back to the homeowners and see what they want to do.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay.
Suzanne, is there enough room on the property to put a shed somewhere?
There's no conforming location. There's room. I mean, the one issue that we have, which I mentioned at the last hearing, I'll mention again, the sanitary system is right in the middle of the property right here, which prevents us from moving out of this corner very far, because that takes the sanitary location. We can't cover it, obviously, and we want to leave space in case that sanitary needs to be expanded or upgraded here, or if in the future they do decide to reconstruct the house and move it more towards the center of the property. We don't want to construct a brand new garage in a location that would prohibit construction of the house or expansion of the sanitary system sort of in the middle. So that's why it's designed the way it is, to keep their options open for future.
Right.
Well, today we can only deal with today, and now we're doing this.
And I'm sorry that Adam wasn't here at the last hearing to express that reality of 100%, nearly 100% excised accessory structure. But they're putting the cart before the horse. They want to have the garage and then do the house, but it's not a wise. The zoning doesn't permit it, a garage that size.
So should we get another date for you to come back, Suzanne?
Yes.
Yep. But before we do that, I want to ask if there's anyone from the public, well, any other questions of members of the board or Katie? Is there, Susanna? No. Okay. Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard in connection with the application of 16 Sagamore LLC for property located at 16 Sagamore Road in Hampton Bays? If you are waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
There are no hands.
No hands. Okay. All right. So Susanna, yeah. So we have, I believe, room on our agenda April 1st or April 15th.
I'm not available April 1st, so it would have to be the 15th.
Okay. All right.
So just to be clear, so I can go back with some concrete expectations for the homeowner, you would grant setback relief and potentially pyramid maybe for 2 one-car garages. Or potentially a 2-car garage that's only 1 story.
Yep, that had a percentage that's significantly less compared to the primary structure than what it is.
Is there a target percentage that,
Well, I think 50% probably would be a target to shoot for.
okay,
I mean, then if you did 50% and you did 2 garages, you'd have all the space you wanted just in 2 separate structures.
so you would permit potentially 50% size twice?
I think so, because then the accessory structures are accessory structures versus the accessory structure being essentially the same size as the primary structure. So we have to make an interpretation that the accessory structure is actually accessory. And so when you're approaching, 70, 80, 90% plus, it really is hard to make the argument that the accessory structure is in fact an accessory structure. At least that's how I see it. And I believe other board members have seen it that way too.
Well,
Put a one, Susanna, put a 1-car garage in there. Make it a little bit bigger than maybe a 1-car, then you have your storage. No second story. Whatever.
Okay, are we done?
All right, thank you for the options and thank you for the feedback.
No problem. Keith, it's yours.
Yeah, I'll move to hold this over for all purposes to 4:15.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Mr. Tudhill,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
aye.
Mr. Daly,
aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, thank you so much, Susanna.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go back to item 8. Kate, that's all I got left is 8.
Yes, please.
Esposito and Esposito, 730 Flanders Road. The Flanders, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-143-2-48. They're open for business. They're taking it.
Is Linda Ruiz? We're looking for Linda Ruiz.
Only have a William Hughes. That's the only person here.
Let's see what Mr. Hughes is here for.
Okay.
Maybe a decision.
Can you put your video on?
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
The voice.
Okay. there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I'm just here for a decision at the end. That's it.
Oh,
Okay, no problem. Okay. thank you.
which decision are you here for?
Calia.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, we'll get to the decisions as soon as we figure out what's going on with this one. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so with Esposito, we have nobody here. It was on for final. And I would move that we make a determination. I believe I have a determination ready to deny without prejudice. So
Correct.
That's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, so I'll read the decision that we have. This is number 8 on the calendar, matter of Michael Esposito and Louis Esposito. Whereas on July 6, 2017, Linda Ruisi filed an application on behalf of Michael and Louis Esposito seeking relief from Town Code 330-167B3, specific types of variances to legalize a change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use without the benefit of a building permit, to wit, from a restaurant and lounge to a takeout restaurant, delicatessen market, and any other relief necessary. Whereas a public hearing was held on October 15, 2017, whereas persons both for and against the granting of said relief were able to be heard, and the Zoning Board of Appeals adopted a resolution for the Planning Board to assume lead agency for secret purposes. Thereafter, the application was continually adjourned until August 20th, 2020, where more testimony was presented, and the application was subsequently adjourned to the November 19th, 2020 meeting. and then again until January 21st, 2021. And whereas by letter dated February 2nd, 2021, the agent of the applicant was notified that the applicant was going to be adjourned for a final time until March 18th, 2021. And whereas at the March 18th, 2021 meeting, no one appeared on behalf of the application, now therefore be it resolved that the application of Michael Esposito and Louis Esposito in connection with variances to legalize a change from one non-conforming use to another without the benefit of a building permit, to it from a restaurant and lounge to a takeout restaurant, delicatessen market, is hereby denied without prejudice.
Second,
Was that you, Keith?
it was. If you
Okay.
need it.
Mr. Tuthill,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Ms. Burtis,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
chair votes aye. And now I have an amended decision on the application of Douglas and Elizabeth Moss. This is for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-123-244. On March 4th, 2021, by decision number D021019, this board granted variance relief to raise an existing dwelling and construct a proposed addition. This decision is being amended to correct the scrivener's error, to wit the date of the survey. Therefore, decision number D021019 is hereby amended to refer to structures as shown on the survey prepared by AJC Land Surveying, PLLC, surveyed September 12th, 2019, last revised October 11th, 2020. All other provisions and conditions of decision number D021019 remain in full force and effect.
Second,
Mr. Tuthill,
aye.
Ms. Burtis,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
chair votes aye. And I have two decisions. I don't know if anybody else has decisions, but anyway, I'll just keep going for now. I have a decision in the matter of the application of Eugene Miozzi for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-318-157. This application is for property located at 55 Squires Avenue, East Quogue. Applicant requests setback relief for a proposed two-story dwelling on a corner lot. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief to the applicant from the following provisions of Town Code 33011, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a proposed two-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot. 1, a principal front yard setback of 34 feet where 40 feet is required from the northerly property line, Squires Avenue, and a principal front yard setback of 33 feet where 40 feet is required from the westerly property line, Ocean Avenue, as shown on the survey prepared by Harold F. Tranchen Jr., PC, surveying, dated February 25th, 2020, last revised August 6th, 2020, and the plans prepared by Angelo S. Nicosia, PE, dated February 17th, 2021, last dated March 16th, 2020. I think that's probably last dated March 16th, 2021. I think that must be a typo. The grant of the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second,
Mr. Tuthill,
aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Ms. Burtis,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
chair votes aye. And I have one more decision in the application of Bartomia Kalia for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-296-135. This application is for property located at 21 North Westbury Road, Hampton Bays. Applicant seeks a road frontage variance on a vacant lot. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from Town Code 33082, lot width, to allow a road frontage of 16.65 feet where a minimum of 40 feet is required, as shown on the survey prepared by Paul Borilski, dated October 24th, 2020. Granted the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Tuthill,
Aye.
Mr. Hahn,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Burtis,
Aye.
chair votes aye.
A determination in the matter of Elizabeth Hazan, property located at 131 Butterland in Bridgehampton, tax map 900-69-2, lot 1.1. Applicant seeks to construct a new artist studio pool house accessory structure. The structure will not contain any cooking facilities and will not contain any sleeping facilities. The existing house is 2,598 square feet. The proposed artist studio pool house will be 1,000 square feet, or approximately 38% of the existing house. They're going to maintain the existing screening between them and the neighbors and meets the 5-part test. Therefore, this board finds under this set of facts and circumstances that the proposed artist studio pool house is a subordinate or incidental building pursuant to Southampton Town Code 330-5 definitions to allow the size of the artist studio pool house to be 38% of the total floor area of the existing house, and grants relief from Town Code 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards to allow the proposed accessory building to be located within the rear and minimum required side yard for the principal building, all for structures as shown on the survey prepared by Borowski Land Surveying, last dated December 30th, 2020, and the plans prepared by Charlotte R. DeWald, Register Architect, dated December 15th, 2020, received by this board on March 12th, 2021. This relief is granted on the condition that the existing hedging between the proposed structure and the property line be maintained, and that the artist studio pool house will not include any cooking or sleeping facilities. The granting of this relief is subject to the conditions of such other permits that the applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for the final approval of the structures on the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Determination of the matter of Matthew Sachs, property located at 557 Mitchell Lane, Bridgehampton, tax map 951, lot 8.002. I'm going to read the requested relief at the end. Applicant submitted plans to the building department to construct a house, tennis court, and pool house on this flag lot. The house foundation was poured and the frame was built when the owner requested an amendment to the building plans. It was then discovered that the tennis court was originally permitted to be built, that it should have required a variance for its placement within the total side yard. The applicant says there are no alternatives, that any reconfiguration would require further variances. The tennis court in the original permit was 60 by 120 feet. However, after discussions with this board, and since the court now requires a variance, the applicant agreed to reduce the size of the court to 55 by 110. And the applicant also agreed that the tennis court will be sunken and screened. Pam Harwood testified in opposition to the application, stating that the applicant and his design professional should have known that the plans submitted were not in compliance with the town code and the variances should not have been granted. Meredith Berkowitz appeared in opposition to the application, asserting that the process has not been followed for the variance and that the applicant does not have any practical difficulty. Who finds it meets the 5-part test. Therefore, and for the reasons set forth herein, this board grants relief from Town Code 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards to allow a 55 by 110 sunken tennis court to remain within the total side yard and for the principal building, as shown on the survey by Squires Holden, Weisenbacher, and Smith, last dated February 12, 2021. The granting of this relief is subject to the tennis court being both sunken and screened, and is subject to such other permits as the applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the structures on the subject premises.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
That's it.
Yep. And I want to thank you all as well for the plant, which is very beautiful, that I have on my dining room table, and I really appreciate it. And nice to see you all.
To Adam.
Nice to
Good to see you back, Adam.
Good to see you back.
Yep. Absolutely.
Blessings.
Good luck to you, bub.
All right, so motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.